Alright, friends. It is I. Cribbison136. Sorry, I'm just doing a thing real quick. I forgot to do it before I started. Is what it is. I'm done. Big patch. Big patch. I'm also going to select my contract real quick because I'm going to end up playing anyway. Any heroes that I would automatically play by default? Probably not. Okay, let's just something simple. Anyway, patch. Big patch. It's huge. It's humongous. Like, honestly, humongous. It's not the biggest patch that's ever happened, but it's close to it. We're going to dive in. I'm going to gloss over some stuff. I don't have a ton of time to do a patch note. I have enough. I'm going to end up playing in about an hour and 40 minutes anyway, but I don't want to do this for that long if I can avoid it. So I'm going to gloss over a lot. I'm going to talk fast. Just going to talk about what I really care about. Impressions, basically. It came out last night. I've had a couple smaller patches since then. I don't think they've said anything in them, but they're fixing bugs. So, base hero gold bounty is increased just by 5, basically. That number changed. The 120 to level is now 125. It's minor. So, you just get more money when you kill heroes. The streak gold and XP for smaller streaks is actually worth less. But right around the threshold of 5, well, actually, I guess, yeah, 5. I think it's for both of them. No, it's like 10 for XP. So you will get less gold for getting bounty streaks, but until you get a certain amount, and a lot less XP until a very high amount. It's minor. It's just changing things to, like, I think comeback mechanics and stuff is really what this is going to affect. Cooldown reduction now stacks diminishingly. That's just cool because some heroes can reduce your cooldown. They can give you a cooldown reduction. So it's nice it doesn't really, like, stack the same. It just did some corner cases. Doesn't matter. Bounty runes are removed to from the triangle to the primary jungle. This means that now your safe lane support is responsible for getting bounty runes rather than your off lane. And on top of that, it's harder for mid to get it. Because mid used to be able to walk right up the stairs. Now it's kind of farther, to my understanding. So I haven't looked at this in game yet, but this is very inconvenient for mid. Dire and Radiant offlane towers are 320 units further away from the base. That actually increases offlane's chance of surviving. As it is right now, prior to this change, offlane is really rough because of how far away from your tower you often are. The tower is actually closer now because it's further from base, which means and it's both, I think. It's offlane towers. Both of them move out. So it's actually easier to push this tier 2 because that one's always very close to their tower, like their base. So that could be a little rough. So that's nice. It's a little farther from the outpost as well. But, wait. No, outpost is on the other side of the map. Doesn't matter. Irrelevant. Scratch that. But when you're looking at this from like a meta standpoint, it's going to be easier to not have people TP to base and fight. So you can take the tower easier, but in lane, it means there's less space in the lane for the creeps to move in equilibrium, which might help in general if you're a hero, if you're a safe laner, and they keep pulling the creeps towards them. They can't go as far now. So that's kind of nice, but it's easier for them to drag you in a tower, so I don't know. When a hero responds in Fountain, they're invulnerable as long as there's at least one enemy hero on the base until they issue a command, meaning they just don't do anything at all. This is just to stop Fountain farming when people are just going AFK. That's all. Kill gold information now shows a breakdown of gold bounty for the killer plus proximity gold. Quality of life, don't care about anything that's quality of life. The following abilities now consistently reveal invis for their duration. So it's nice. A lot of abilities reveal invis units if they're directly under their effect. It's a bunch of them. It's a ton. I'm not going to read them all. But basically, it's a lot of, like, snares and stuff. Reveal, basically. If you're caught by somebody directly with an ability that's similar to a snare, because they're all, like, snares and roots, you now get it revealed if you're invis. That's a really big nerf to invis heroes. Attack and armor types now represented through abilities. Most damage remains unchanged, with a few exceptions in creep versus creep and creep versus tower scenarios. So I'm not going to go over all this. Basically, they just changed the way that certain units, like jungle creeps and regular creeps and all that stuff, have certain types of attacks and armor. And it just changes the way they do damage. I don't actually know how this is going to affect things. I need somebody who's better than me to really delve into this. I know to some degree that reinforced units are going to do a lot more damage to towers because towers are now reinforced. And so that might change what creeps you steal if you're going to talk about like how the Dom strats and stuff. And so maybe there's better creeps to do things like that. But it's really minor. And I know that now lane creeps are runty and they do less damage to heroes. But I think they accounted for that for the most part, if I remember correctly. So it's minor. So this is all the same stuff. It just changed a lot of stuff, basically. More or less, some things, which are like Eidolons, Trance, and Lycanwolves, deal more damage to heroes than they used to. It's minor stuff, mostly. It's a lot of creep stuff. A lot of this is a jumble change. Neutral items not shown through the Fog of War until they're picked up if your team dropped them. It's nice. That way you know where it is. Where did someone drop this? Where is it? You can see it on the map. Neutral creeps now increase their HP, armor, base damage, attack speed, gold bounty, and XP bounty every 7.5 minutes. This is big. You know what this stops? Support's trying to jungle, which I always hate. Because now the creeps have more health and stuff. They're harder to jungle. Easier for a core. What does that matter? Who cares if they have a tiny bit more armor and health? I'm doing 1 billion damage anyway. For a support, though, this is much harder to deal with. In addition, stacking becomes a bigger threat, because now they're actually getting more damage and attack speed. So that's a threat to everybody. Neutral creep-based attack time has been increased. More or less, this entire thing here. Creeps have the same general attack speed, but they are more resistant to attack speed slows for certain heroes. That's more or less what this entire change is, and it's going to be in every creep's block. It's for everybody, though. There's a new ancient camp. There's an ancient ice shaman and 2 ancient frostbitten golems, and a new large camp, which is 2 warpine raiders, which we'll talk about when we get there. New items. There are 3. Revenant's Brooch. It is a Witchblade, Mystic Staff, 800 gold. It's a very expensive item. Gives a lot of int, a lot of attack speed, a lot of armor, and increases your projectile speed, so your attack goes faster through the air. You activate, your next 5 attacks have True Strike and deal magic damage, which is super strong. It can also attack ethereal units. So if like a Pug E-blades himself, you still hit him. Expires after 15 seconds, or until you use all 5. Mana cost is 250, which is rather big, and the cooldown, of course, is meaningful. It does not pierce spell immunity. There's also a passive, causes your next attack to apply a poison for 4 seconds, slowing by 25 and dealing 1 times your int as damage every second. Can only trigger once every 9 seconds. It's kind of like a Witchblade, so that's why the Witchblade is part of it. This is a really strong item. It's very expensive, but I can see what this would matter against an evasion-based hero like PA or something. This is an answer. I don't know what it's going to mean overall, but it's obviously an int-based item in theory. Silencer might like this. Wraith Pact. Vladimir's offering point booster, 400 gold recipe. It's kind of expensive. Gives some health, some mana, gives you the Vlad's aura. But as an active, can now be cast within 350 range to create a totem that reduces all enemies' attack and spell damage by 25% and deals 25 damage per second. The totem can move at 150 move speed, which is really low. It's really slow. It like kind of floats. Lasts 25 seconds or 5 hero hits or 10 creep hits. Cooldown 60 seconds. So that seems really strong. It's kind of expensive, but it seems like a good way to like nerf the enemy team with the spell damage and the regular damage. So I really think this is going to be super cool to see who would buy this. I really don't know. Boots of Bearing. New boots. It's an upgraded form of Tranquil Boots. You add Drums of Endurance into it in a recipe. It gives you some good stats, really high movement speed, some HP regen like Tranquils, and has charges. It gains charges every 3 minutes, a charge every 3 minutes. Its active is like Drum, but better. It gives you 50 attack speed, 15% move speed to allies within 1200 for 6 seconds. And during the first 2 seconds, your allies cannot be slowed by anything. Big deal. It also has a passive aura, like Drum. It's really good. This looks like a sick item to upgrade from Tranquils. This is going to be a really big support item. Like a 4 might carry this, for example. This is really good. Bloodstone is ruined, in my opinion. They took away all the old stuff, so now it's a soul booster, voodoo mask, and a recipe. It is significantly cheaper, but here's why. It gives a lot of health, a lot of mana, spell lifesteal, which is good, right? More of it too. And it's active. It doubles the spell lifesteal, so it'd be 50 instead, and also converts the same percentage of damage dealt to mana. Lasts 6 seconds, costs 10% of your health to cast, so that is a good way to avoid damage, basically. When cast, grants the Drain debuff, ignoring extra blood pack effects for 40 seconds. Cooldown, 40 seconds. Just so you can't refresh it. I just don't know who would buy this. They took away the mana battery, the big part of Bloodstone that was good for like Storm and stuff. I don't know. Orchid, it no longer gives int at all. It's now just attack speed, more of it than it used to be. Damage, about the same. It's same that it used to be, but less mana regen. Its active is, I think, the same. Reading it. Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah. So it's the exact same active, still silences, right? But they took the int component away. They did make it cheaper, and they lowered the mana cost, but in exchange, get a little bit more attack speed. So now Orchid could be on anybody, right? Anybody would want this in theory. But not as good on an int hero. So, Bloodthorn changed its price. It's a little bit more expensive. The int went down, attack speed went down, damage went up, mana regen went down. It now gives magic resistance. It has the Mage Slayer passive, basically. And it has Soul Rend, which it used to have. It still has a crit and stuff. It seems basically the same, more or less. Yeah, okay. So I just added the Mage Slayer component of it, which is kind of cool, I guess. Took some stats away, but added magic resistance. It's not as great of a core item now, because you're going to do less damage overall. Even with the 20 damage, it's going to hit you really hard with the 30 lower attack speed. So this is less of a carry item, but maybe more of like a good item in general on some like 3s and stuff. E-Blade, they just changed how you build it. It is more expensive. It no longer gives agility, 40 agility. It's only 5 agility, but 25 int. It now gives spell lifesteal amp, spell amplification, mana regen amplification. E-Blast, I believe, is exactly the same. Yep. Except the cooldown changed. A little worse. Enemy targets are also slowed. That's the exact same. And they deal less to magic. It's still 1.5, but they take less base. 50 magical versus 125. So the active is worse because of the cooldown nerf here. And it does less damage right here. As well as the fact that they took away the agility. So you know who doesn't want to buy this anymore? Morphling! You might still buy it, but it's definitely a really big incentive to not. Because you're really missing out on the agility you would have liked. And even less strength. You lose 5 strength too. Big deal. Aghanim Stride's purchasable at 15 minutes. I mean, I don't know how it's going to change the game, but it matters. Arcane Blink no longer grants cooldown reduction, thankfully. It now gives 25% mana cost reduction and 20% debuff amplification, meaning that you would stun longer. So you get bigger stuns, not more often stuns. And I think that's a good change. I think that was needed, because it was really annoying to see people buy it just so they can get a faster Earthshaker ult up. Armlet has more health drain. That's a nerf. It's really painful, actually. A really painful nerf. Makes it much worse. It's probably still good, but all the same. Blade Mail is a little cheaper, which is super cool, right? It's 25 cheaper. I like that. Boots of Travel move speed went down by 10. So did Boots of Travel speed 2. But Boots of Travel 2 now reduces the channel time of the TP, meaning you can come into a fight faster. That's really big. That's a big buff. Big buff. Any hero who buys Boots of Travel 2, it's going to be a big deal. You're going to see this a lot now. Heroes are going to suddenly appear out of fucking nowhere. Using the bottle removes the lingering fountain buff, i.e. you can only use it once for free once you leave the fountain. That's to stop people from doing the thing where they TP into lane and they start spamming the bottle and throwing spells suddenly. They'll be like Q, W, E, and then still have 3 bottle charges and full mana. So now as soon as you try to spam the bottle, you immediately lose fountain buff. So now you've lost that like a half second of lingering debuff. So that's a big deal. It just nerfs that strat. Bracer, Null, and Wraithband got the same change. They all double their bonuses after 25 minutes. So there's a reason to keep it in your inventory in theory. Null no longer gives 3 spell amp. Now grants 4% mana cost reduction. And that's it for all those. They're all the same. Trying to go fast through this if I can. Crimson Guard. Cooldown reduced by 5. Active damage blocks increased by 5. Big buff. Big buff. Huge. Right? The amount of damage it blocks is already a big deal. Let alone the cooldown. Huge. Deso, nerfed by 5 damage, but, here it comes, now grants +2 damage if an enemy hero dies with this item's corruption debuff, up to a maximum of 25. I don't think that's 25 stacks, I think it's 25 damage, by the way, but I'm not sure. Either way, it's going to end up with more damage almost instantly once you fight. Drum can now be cast without interrupting channeling, that's nice. Dust now also deals 25 damage to enemies revealed when cast. Now you have to, I tested it. It only counts if you were invis and then got hit with dust. But it'll deal damage. So it'll stop people from blinking if they're invis. That's cool. Super cool. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything extra. Still good, I don't know. Diffusal. The recipe was reworked. It is a little cheaper by 650. Big deal. Agility was reduced by 9. Big deal. Some int was reduced by 2. And the melee illusion mana burn went down by 4. So the melee illusions that you might have that use Diffusal don't Diffusal as well. They're definitely nerfs. It's definitely better on a lot of different heroes now. Now that they lost a lot more agility than anything else, I can justify other people getting a Diffusal Blade. and there's a hero in mind that I want to get, although he's an agility hero, we'll get back to this. We'll get back to this change because of how cheap it is in a minute. Scotty, bonus stats were reduced by 3, but the health and mana went up by 20 each. That's a nerf. 3 would be 60. Losing the bonus stats lost 60 health, and I believe it's a little bit less mana, about 47 or something. So them adding 20 it's just a nerf, honestly. Cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduced by 3 seconds of Force Staff. Big deal. Love it. Please buy more Force Staff on supports. Gem now is an active. You choose an area, a 300 AoE area within 300 range for 4 seconds, and it keeps True Sight there. It's a 12-second cooldown. It does not grant vision, just invisible vision, meaning you have to still have vision there, like a ward or something. No longer reveals invisibility when dropped, i.e. when you drop on the ground, it doesn't reveal invis in the area. Ghost Scepter's cooldown went up by 2 as well, to match. Pugna gets nerfed by this, by the way. Glimmer's active magic resist went up by 5. Please buy Glimmer. It's so good. Healing Salve duration was increased by 3, but the per second went down by 10. The total heal was reduced by 10 total. And now it's easier to cancel because it takes longer. I love this because people always buy salves to try to beat me in lane. I buy salves too, but like they buy more. Like often they buy a ton and it pisses me off. So now it's harder because I can cancel it. Holy Locket bonus mana was reduced by 25, minor. Hood magic resistance went up by 2. Sorry, down by 2, my bad. But the barrier went up by 25, and the mana cost went down by 25. So I'd say it probably okay. Hurricane. Cooldown went down by 3. Cast range went up by 100. Enemy cast range increased, meaning casting on an enemy, increased by 50. Attack range increased by 10, meaning it's if you're like a ranged hero, you get 10 more range just by holding it, which is really nice for Sniper and Viper and stuff. Ally push speed increased by 300, so it pushes faster when you push an ally, including yourself. So that's a really big buff on Hurricane. It's a very good item now. Bonus status resistance on the Sange part of Kaya Sange went down by 2. Minor. Meteor Hammer. Costs less unit damage, which is everybody. Unit means you and your like heroes and creeps. Went down by 30 the per second, so that's much less damage. The stun duration went down by 0.25, but the radius went up by 85. So it's easier to hit with Meteor Hammer, but not as punishing when it does. And that's a big deal, because the guaranteed hits, like from OD and stuff, don't matter as much, because you were going to get hit anyway, so the impact radius doesn't matter. So his guaranteed setup makes it, it's worse, because it's less damage, less stun. Nullifier no longer pierces magic immunity, garbage item. No longer slows the enemy, no longer has a mana cost. That part's nice, but it's garbage, honestly. I think Nullifier's not going to get picked up anymore. Unless it has to. Magic resistance aura increased from 10% to 12% on pipe. Nice, that's really good. Quellen Blade is 30 cheaper, which also means Battle Fury is cheaper. Nice. So good for one of my heroes, Anti-Mage. Quell damage was reduced from 12.6 to 8.4. So here's the thing. Since it went down by 4 on the melee and only 2 on the ranged, that actually means that it's even marginally better on range than it used to be. So you should be picking this up on course, always. It is weaker though, harder to last hit, right? So we're going to have to really work for it now. Radiance. The recipe got reworked. Its cost was reduced by 50. It can now be disassembled, which is nice. It now grants 15% evasion. The blind effect was reduced by 7 for like the aura. And it can no longer be toggled on or off when the owner is out of the game. That means when you're disrupted or imprisoned or whatever. People were doing things where you would get disrupted by Shadow Demon and then turn off your Radiance while you were disrupted so that the illusion that Shadow Demon got didn't have Radiance. That's lame, so you can't do that anymore. So, actual change here. It's cheaper, and evasion is better than blind. Factually. Now, granted, the blind affects everybody rather than evasion just affects yourself. But being the Radiance holder is now infinitely better. Because number one, it's 15 versus the 7 you lost, so it's already just numbers-wise better. But also, you can purge blind by BKBing. That does not work for evasion at all. So, like, evasion's better. So for the hero who holds it, way better. For the other heroes, a little worse, but sure, whatever. Refresher Orb's mana regen was reduced substantially, and the cooldown was increased by 10. I mean, it's still good for what it does, but, like, that's rough. Bonus stats resistance on, yeah, same thing. And the Sange component is lowered by 2 the same way. Satanic cooldown increased by 5. Thank you. Too good of an item. Glad. Soul Ring increased by 20, which is fair. It's really strong. If you've seen, like, a Sand King lane with Soul Ring and stuff, you will appreciate the fact that it's more expensive. Swift Blink, one of my favorite changes. Active no longer grants attack damage and attack speed. It used to be way too good on everybody. Now it just grants agility. Now granted, that's still 35 attack speed, even if you're not an agility hero. But that's not enough, I don't think. Because now you're trading 35 attack speed for the potential of getting whatever it is, 30 damage or something on the strength one if you're a strength hero. So it's supposed to just be picked up on agility heroes. So I'm glad they changed this shit. Way better. Neutral items, I don't care a lot about these. I'm going to gloss over them a lot. I mean, Health on Shovel nerf, which is good. Bonus Stint and Arcane Ring nerf, so we can't get like silencers and ODs ruining games. Cooldown on Temple Destroy is better, because it's actually not that good. Armor buff on Broom Handle, but the damage decrease, so it's better on like 3s and stuff. Movement speed on Quicksilver Element nerf, needed. Damage decreased on Aquila substantially, I don't know why. I would never use this now. Bonus mana regen on Essence Ring nerf, that was needed. Grove Bow, bonus attack speed, buffed. That's really nice, actually. I really like that. Brigand's Blade, the damage bonus per health missing is increased slightly. It's nice. Pupil's secondary gift stats were buffed, which actually makes me want to pick it up more. Fey Grenade, damage per second increased. No longer grants vision to both teams. Weird. Bonus movement speed on Spider Legs was nerfed. Active duration buffed. That's fine, I guess. Bonus damage increased on Enchanted Quiver, but less range. Really nice for heroes who are not using it for the range quality. A lot of people do that. Quickening Charm, cooldown reduction, nerf, HP regen buff, bonus mana on Ceremonial, nerf substantially. Psychic Headband, bonus int, nerf slightly. Psychic range nerf, that's really bad actually. Bonus damage was reduced by 4 on Paladin Sword, making it not necessarily just the best item in its class. Bonus attack range and Telescope went down, cast range also went down, that's a really big nerf, that's really sad. Blast Rig, the trigger explosion radius was increased. Oh, that's really nice. And explosion damage was nerfed, though. That's okay. That's a good change, though. Because you want to blind more people, so that's really good. HP regen on Aesthetics Cap was increased substantially. That's really nice, because I actually pick this up sometimes. Timeless Relic, the debuff duration amplification was reduced by 5. Oh, rough. Leveler, 10 less attack speed. That's fair. Spell Prism, cooldown nerf. Bonus attributes buff, which is weird. Ninja Gear, bonus agility increased. Ooh. Active movement speed increased. That's really nice for Ninja Gear. You move so fucking fast then when you use, it says active movement speed. Yeah. I guess when you use smoke, you get faster. That's really cool. Witchbane now additionally grants 20 attack speed. I would now pick this up. I never use it on Korras. Now it's better. Book of Shadows, more stats. Fallen Sky got all its stats nerfed, basically. But the damage per second to buildings was up, but the units was lowered. It's just a worse item. Powered Hat now gives 15 movement speed for no reason. Awesome. Arcanist Armor just changes mana shields, only affects heroes, basically. Which is cool. Alright, here's the new creeps. I'm not going to talk too much about them. You can see their stats, obviously. I'm just going to talk about why it matters. So I don't want to talk about every single stat. So the new Ice Shaman, which is the big one that goes to the golems, he hits very hard, has a lot of health. He's ranged, and he throws a bomb dealing damage per second, and it can actually affect buildings as well if he was to be controlled by somebody. Does a little bit less damage to buildings, but still. Seems pretty good. The new Golem, he grants cooldown reduction in an aura, which means you could actually take him and get your team cooldown reduction, which is super cool. Other than that, it seems normal. The Warpine Raiders, which is the new neutral camp, large camp, they have Seed Shot. They throw a seed to units, slowing for 100% for 1 second and dealing damage. Can bounce nearby enemies up to 4 hits, kind of like Hoodwink. They seem like they have a lot of health for their kind of camp, but, you know, they have a lot of armor too. They're pretty tanky, and it looks like that would be really annoying to be slowed. They're okay, though. Basically what they did is they increased the damage for a lot of camps. I'm really just going to skip over this. I just do not have the time to go delving in. They're all buffs. Things are worth less a lot. For most camps, they're worth less that we're going to skip over in experience and golds, depending on the camp we're talking about. Like this one's more experience, but I'm ignoring all of the base attack times and stuff. It's all the same. A lot of turn rates were increased. They just changed a lot about them. They changed a lot of damage types. It's just, I'm not going to know how this is going to affect anything until I actually see it. And a lot of things, a lot of enemies now use their abilities more often, because they don't usually do that, if that makes sense. So they're just supposed to use their abilities more often too. It's a lot of changes, but I'm going to skip over all of it because honestly, I don't know what the implications are. It gives the rights to the heroes anyway. So some of these I don't care too much. I'm just going to be like, you know, nerf, whatever. Abaddon's less tanky, gets more mana. his shard now causes Mistcoil to deal Abaddon's attack damage on impact, which means that he can have it proc Maelstrom or something, and his curse. And it increases his base slow by 10%. That's kind of cool, actually. I'm not sure if this is better or worse than his old shard, though. His talents minorly changed, doesn't matter. Alchemist, now when he uses Unstable, he's much faster, making it easier to throw it. And the explosion now damages enemy creeps, because it only used to damage heroes for some reason. Big change, because now he can use this to farm. Well, kind of. I guess it still has to be thrown at a hero. You can't target a creep. So, at least not that I know of. I believe you can still only target an enemy hero. But still, it's nice to kill creeps too. And the movement speed is super cool. It deals its damage more often, but has the same total. It just means that it's harder to like do something to negate its damage. Slow nerf on Ice Vortex in the long run. Magic Amp buffed. Chilling Touch's cooldown went down early. Mana cost was reduced. I hate that. Damage was reduced too, though. Oh, that's nice. Small things. Anti-Mage, my hero. Base strength was reduced by 2, which means he loses 40 health at all levels, like just 40 total. But Mana Break can now stack with Diffusal Blade, which is like cool. I'm going to get to that in a second. And now also slows enemy movement speed by 10, 20, 30, 40% for 0.75 seconds when it burns all of the target's mana. Which means if I hit you and your mana has hit 0 from the hit, you are now slowed for 0.75 seconds at the listed level. I want to talk about this. Illusions also apply to the effect, by the way. So, now, if I can mana you out, you can never leave. I'm faster than you now. Like, you can't leave, and I can blink too. Diffusal is now able to stack, so I want to buy a Diffusal so I do mana you out, and it's cheaper. Battle Fury is cheaper. I'm like, that's the thing now. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying Battle Fury, Manta into Diffusal. And my illusions, although they do less than Diffusal used to do, because they only do 8 now instead of 12 or whatever, it's enough, honestly. I tested it. It's crazy the mana they strip off people. It's nuts. I'm playing a lot of Anti-Mage. Arkwarden got an agility gain increase substantially, and Spark Rate does more damage late. But Tempest Double now has a 50% attack damage penalty if more than 2,000 units away from Arkwarden. So the split pushing thing, days are numbered. That's a tremendous nerf to the right-clicking Arkward, because now he just doesn't push as well at all. Can't kill as well either. They changed some minor things. I don't care as much. Tempest Double cooldown reduction is actually really good at 25, so that might be cool. But you're gonna have to see Arkwardens fight with their friends, like with their duplicate more. I'm gonna take a mini break. All right, break time over. Okay, so Arkward, I'm curious to see how this cooldown reduction goes down, but I think the Tempest Double nerf is too big. Axe got a lot of changes. So Battle Hunger deals physical. Damage was rescaled to do less, but it also does 1x Axe's armor, which means when he calls, it does more. It doesn't grant a movement speed bonus to Axe, but it does still slow, as long as the enemy is not facing Axe. If they're facing him, they're not slowed. Slow is rescaled to do less early, but a lot late. Counter Helix, there's now a Shard. It reduces total attack damage taken by Axe from this affected unit. This makes Blade Mail deal full damage back since the outgoing damage isn't reduced. Basically, this is a weird change. I don't know how this is going to matter. So if you Culling Blade somebody, you get a permanent armor bonus to Axe, just standard. The cooldown was increased. Mana cost was decreased. Movement speed bonus was... It now scales up. Attack speed bonus scales up. Damage is now pure and pierces magic immunity. Damage was increased at all levels. And he changed some talents to kind of fit in with the new thing, as well as one that gives more permanent armor per Culling Blade, and it's retroactive, meaning it counts how many times you Culling Bladed somebody. So basically, Axe is an armor stacking hero forever, which is very interesting. I don't know how that's going to matter. Armor does matter a lot, but he's still susceptible to burst. We'll see. Bane no longer reduces cast speed on Enfeebled. Now reduces cast range instead, which is pretty strong. Damage reduction and minor stuff. Batrider has base armor. Flaming Lasso no longer disarms you. Your attacks apply one stack of sticky napalm. Ooh. Mana cost reduced on Flame Break. Mana cost reduced on Flaming Lasso. And a lot of his talents seem to be just jumbled around. Some are better, some are changed. It's very complicated. I don't want to really get into that. That's minor. Beastmaster's base damage went down by 2, which is pretty dramatic for his offlane capabilities. And instead of him getting move speed, his units are faster. I think that's probably better, actually, too. His units should be faster. He can just blink. Instead of having the Scepter ability that gives Bloodseeker 2 charges of Rupture or whatever, now instead he has Blood Mist. He sprays blood in the area. He takes 5% damage as pure for a minimum of 4 seconds, I believe, which is a lot. But it deals 5% of a unit's max HP, which is not his, it's whatever the unit is, to every enemy within that radius, and he slows them by 25%. Also, while you're Blood Mist, your thirst healing is increased by 50%, so you heal much more too. It's a very risk-versus reward strategy. I don't think it's worth it, but who knows? Your 2 Rupture Charges now comes over here, so you can get it at 25, which is kind of cool. Bounty is faster. Cooldown increased on Shadow Walk, but it also, they changed one of his things so they can do a better slow later. I mean, it's whatever. I don't like them being faster, but it's fine. Brewmaster got some really cool changes. Now when you hit somebody with Cinder Brew, you also get the debuff, but not like the negative, just a debuff. What's actually a buff, I guess. And now Drunken Brawler can be switched between Earth, Storm, and Fire. And basically, whichever one you choose gives you certain benefits that were kind of related to the Drunken Brawler in general. And if you have recently gotten the brew effect, they're better as long as you keep the effect on, which of course will go over as it goes away over time. It's kind of complicated to explain all of what they do. You can kind of read it, but it's basically just a bunch of buffs. Primal Spit Shard no longer grants Brewmaster's attack procs to the Void Ruling. Shard now grants Void Brawler stance, grants Brewmaster stats resistance and 25% move slow. Effective triple to Brewmaster's effect by Cinder Brew. Like, just some interesting things to his Shard and stuff. It's very interesting in general. Bristle faster, less strength gain, but more max charges on Warpath, and a lot of talent nerfs. Except his Warpath damage per stack, which got increased. I mean, I think he's going to be pretty cool. I think it's a really cool change because him being faster is really important. I don't care about his strength as much. I care about these because it's going to do him a lot more damage and faster, even faster. Brewmaster, just a little quality of life change. Spiderlings last less time, but they are stronger. They don't deal damage per second. They slow better at the end. They just changed a lot of her talents. I don't really care about that. Centaur no longer has the highest strength by far. His base armor was increased. He does more damage on Hoof Stomp. Double-edged quality of life. Nerf on Stampede Scepter. Oh, never mind. It's a buff and a nerf. It doesn't do as much damage reduction, but it leashes enemies. Ooh. Chaos Knight now deals extra damage to creeps with a crit, which means it's much easier to farm. Shen, when he gives someone Holy Persuasion, they're faster. Hand of God gives less burst health, but then gives a buff for healing, which ends up being more. Wait, more? 400. Yeah, much more. Because if you look at the max level, 40 for 10 seconds is 400. So the difference would be they'd have to be 800 before to balance out. So it gives you a lot more health, but it's over time, which is not as good. Obviously, you'd want burst healing. I'm not sure if this will make Shen much more played or not. This is really rough. Clings can channel longer. Big whoop. You got a lot of talent changes. They're all mixed around. I don't care. Interestingly enough, Clockwork now gets a talent that leashes units inside cogs. Very interesting for heroes who can get out otherwise. That's very cool. Crystal Nova has crazy attack speed slow now, and now Arcane Aura grants mana to allies within a radius whenever Crystal Maiden casts a spell, but not items. So whenever she casts her spells, allies around her get mana, which is very interesting. I don't know how much that's going to matter, but we'll see. Her talent got better. They've replaced her magic resistance with more mana that she gives from Arcane Aura. I don't know how much this is going to matter, but it's free. It's free. Dark Seer is tankier, but stupider. Iron Shell can last longer. Ouch. They basically just front-loaded his Scepter. Can now be cast on creep hero units. I didn't know it couldn't. Normal Punch's illusion duration was reduced by 2. I don't know. Generally nerfs, I think. Some of it's nice, some of it's not. Dark Willow heals faster. More damage long run on Bramble. It gives True Sight over you. We already knew that. Shadow Realm now doesn't give Invis immediately. It has a fade time. That's really weak. That's really bad for her, so it's easier to stun her. Shard no longer reduces cooldown of Cursed Crown, so that sucks. Seconds per revolution decreased on Bedlam. It means it's harder to keep someone in the Bedlam. The damage is also reduced. Yeah, a lot of nerfs in general. The attack speed thing too, so you can't just be like this whole Shadow Realm nonsense. Dawnbreaker. Starbreaker just got a bunch of changes. It's worse in a lot of ways, but it's easier to hit with the smash at the end. That's basically, I'm just going to summarize, that's what it is. That's everything in general. Some whatever. Heals allies better with Luminosity. That's kind of cool. Minor. Dazzle's broken now. So basically, his Poison Touch late cooldown is better. Now when he does Shallow, it gives an incoming heal amplification based on how much HP is being missed by the shallowed unit. Shadow Wave is cheaper, and its cooldown is worse. Great. Well, better earlier, but worse. I guess that's fair. New ult. Good Juju. Whenever Dazzle casts an ability, all of his ability cooldowns are reduced, which is bullshit. Bad Juju. Whenever a unit is affected by one of Dazzle's abilities, they lose armor, which they always did, for a small duration. But it can be activated to deal damage to all those enemies and heal allies. And now he has a Scepter. Good Juju, this one. Now also reduces all of Dazzle's item cooldowns by 50%, and can be cast on an ally to reset their item cooldowns altogether. Meaning that he can just be like, oh, my core doesn't have their BKB and their Manta and their whatever. Abyssal Blade. Just kidding, they do. Seems broken. Even though it's 180 seconds, broken. The only good thing is that now it doesn't look like he has an ult that reduces cooldowns standard. Now it has to be reduced based on him casting. I guess that's kind of cool. Don't care. Thunderstrike nerf. Shard no longer targets allies. They have to be in the radius of the Thunderstrike to get the buff, which is better. It makes more sense. They made early game glimpse better. Doom now gets less gold, but he gets armor while he's digesting a creep, making him better in lane. Burn damage is rescaled to be worse. Well, yeah, it's going to be worse because of percentage. Mana cost increased on Doom. That's so painful. Trying to finish this up in like 10 minutes. Not gonna. Buff to endgame Breathe Fire and Fireball. Don't care. Drow's squishier, her range multiplier from multi-shots worse, but she does get movement speed when she casts Gust. Earth Spear got a bunch of changes. They're all just minor things. It's basically he has less health, but more regen by a lot, 4 times. And basically everything that got changed is early game buffs as well as cast point buffs. So he can just cast things faster. He can go quicker. He can get his stuff out, which is the biggest thing. That's like all of this. I'm gonna gloss over it. Minor. I don't really care about talents too much, even though they matter. Eldritch Titan has better mana regen and quality of life change. Ember no longer does reduced damage to creeps, which is nice, and the cooldown is better earlier on Slight. The bonus hero damage, though, went down late. Now Flame Guards, the blocking damage absorbs percentage, which is really interesting, so he'll still take some damage from magic. And now there's a cast point to Fire Remnant, which means there's a split second where he goes to cast and has not casted yet. Really cool. Enchantress is an agility gain, which means attack speed for her, and armor. Mana cost reduced on Impetus. It now deals extra damage versus creeps and illusions. And mana cost on Nature's Tenants went down, so fuck Enchantress. Eidolons are better. They just have better attack point, range, all that shit. Midnight Pulse now deals based on current HP and not max. And it's not going to be as good, honestly. I know it's more percentage, but it's just going to be a nerf, I think. Void heals better. Stroke of Fate in general just got a bunch of changes about cast point, like how fast it goes. It's slow. It's basically slower, and it does less damage. That's more or less what changed. Homing Missile does more damage and less stun early. Minor changes. Acorn Shot's faster, but it fixed a bug with it. Passive Evasion on Hoodwink was nerfed. Minor things. No longer can Sharpshooter ever pierce magic immunity, so... Huskar just has more starting strength, less strength overall, but he gets his magic resistance from Berserker's Blood back. He used to have it. Invoker is now faster standard by 10, but he gets less from Wex, which is totally fair. Some increased mana costs and lowered mana costs for certain abilities. Some stacking things. They're all minor, honestly. And now his 25 talent that gives him extra Quasflex Exhort passive has been increased substantially, so that's cool. IO, I don't even understand what's happening over here. I'm honestly just going to say skip. If you want to understand, you should know how to play IO. I don't know. Ejikiro is squishier. And a lot of his cooldowns got increased in early game stuff buffs. Dual Breath has less damage. Cooldown decreased for Liquid Fire early, so you don't have to max it to get some benefit from it, which is cool. Yeah, it's minor stuff. Jug Healing Ward got a nice scaling mana buff. Cooldown on Omnislash went down, which is super cool, but Jug lost his 30 attack speed talent, but in exchange at 20, he gets a lifesteal on his crits. That's cool. Coddle, Illuminate hits a larger radius, which is so annoying. It comes out faster too. Division also goes up on it. And the cooldown Spirit Form went down, and the pushback duration went up on Blinding Light, so he's just much better. X just got some quality life changes. That's really all they are. Legion now has a shard. Instead of her shard giving press the attack spell immunity, she gets that at 25, and it gives armor for units hit by her overwhelming odds. That's really all it is. And overwhelming odds was nerfed. Well, kind of nerfed, kind of buffed. Base damage increased on Lesh. He no longer... Leshrac getting magic immunity doesn't cancel nihilism, which is really important. It's so stupid that it did in the first place. Lich has more agility, but less int. Attack speed slow on Frost Blast is really big. Whoa. Frost Shields now does its first hit quicker, which is really big. Mana cost was reduced on Ult 2. Rage cooldown nerf. Open wounds. Now if someone gets damaged while they're open wounds, which is a shard, they can spread it. It'll fester and spread. So that's really cool. Minor though. Lena now is a Fiery Soul like focused hero. So basically now her spells do more damage based on Fiery Soul charges. The number of Fiery Soul charges is more, but they do less per charge to make you want to stack them up. And they last longer. So that's really cool. It's a lot of just changes like that. Finger is cheaper, and its cooldown is better earlier. Spirit Bear in general is just better. In general, it's just better. Like, it just is. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's better in a bunch of ways. Entangle basically got a bunch of buffs. One slight nerf. Not really, though, I don't think. Yeah, it's basically the same. One small nerf right here. But it's all buffs other than that. He's going to be scary. Quality of life, don't care. Lycan does less damage. Shapeshifted less time. Shockwave Scepter, whatever. I don't... I mean, he just does a bunch of shockwaves much more helpfully, basically. Marcy now has a shard and an Ags. Her Ags reduces Unleash's cooldown, and when it's active, her abilities trigger pulses just when you cast them. So like if you dispose, it triggers the pulse if you have your ult on. And Shard Rebound can be set to autocast to throw the target instead of rebounding off them, so you can jump on someone and throw them. Rebound can no longer target enemies, which is a huge nerf. But the allies' movement speed bonus was increased, so you can make allies faster. Pulse damage was also nerfed. Mars is tankier. Cooldown was increased though. Arena Blood can no longer be escaped vertically by getting thrown or something. But it does less damage. Almost done. Medusa, mana cost reduced in the Mystic Snake. Fuck her. Cold Blooded is now disabled by break, so she can't necessarily like send snakes back, and there is a max range. It's minor. Meepo is tankier, has more agility, has more int. They fixed a bunch of bugs with the clones. And now he gets passive magic resistance when he gets ult. A lot of buffs in general to dig and all that stuff. A lot of buffs that he needed. Marana starts with a lot more agility but gains less. It'll probably take a long time for it to balance out though. Base armor was reduced though because of the starting. Her attack speed went down. But she starts with more attack speed anyway, so it's fine. Her damage went down, but it increased because of the agility. A lot of small things. And she has a cool shard now where like she leaps and does damage in a cone and stuff. Monkey King can see worse now on trees. And his Scepter now gives soldiers the ability to increase their Jingu Mastery stacks, which is weird. Morph Scepter now steals a lot of the stats from the hero he's replicating. And also gets an extra buff for it, which is garbage. Riptide does less damage, but it's no longer random. It's a guaranteed proc, which is super cool. More damage from trees and stuff because of one of the changes. It says less. I'm pretty sure it's because the type makes it more, so it should balance out. Minor stuff. Reaper Scythe no longer increases death timer. Huge buff. Sorry, nerf to him. I meant to say that's great. It's a nerf. But killing an enemy Reaper Scythe now grants him permanent HP regen and mana regen. Don't know why. Night Stalker lost some agility, but he got a better ability to cast Crippling Fear. And some buffs to his talents. Nyx's cooldowns were nerfed in general, but not mana burn for some reason. I don't know why. He's just got a bunch of other benefits. I don't know why. Oh, Ogre is a bullshit ability now. So Ogre had a 20% bash talent, which I forgot about. I don't care about any of these, by the way. So now instead of 20% bash talent, which was a bash, which means it pierces BKB, it changed it to a 17% chance to cast Fire Blast on the target when he hits you, which can multicast. It can. We tested it. Now, granted, it doesn't pierce BKB. It's not a bash. So for someone who has BKB, this is obviously just better to face. You're like, okay, no big deal. I have a BKB on. But for everybody else, he has a chance to hit you for a quadruple Fire Blast just by attacking you. It's crazy. Omniknight has more int. Now his shard is Degen Aura, because Degen Aura was removed as a basic skill. Heavenly Grace doesn't give status resistance, which is garbage. But it gains an additional strength and HP regen for each buff it dispels. Now a Hammer of Purity is a basic skill. I don't really know much about this skill very much. It seems like it's okay. It's probably better than Degen. No one's ever going to get the shard. Degen's garbage. Guardian Angel no longer grants HP regen, but it now gives status resistance, which is probably better. I don't know. Omni still seems in a weird space. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Cooldown increased. A lot of changes on Oracle. His cooldown was increased, but the duration was increased on Fates. His Scepter now gives this rain in an area. Even enemies in it, they receive damage per second and have a heal amp degen. Allies heal health and have a heal amp. It seems like really strong, actually. It's probably better than his old one. Arcane Orb Nerf. Essence Flux Nerf. OD's ruined. Swashbuckle does more. Armor reduction ends up being better on Lucky Shot, but the duration is down in general, which is fine. You know, it needs to hit you quickly, you know what I mean? And you can lower the cooldown Swashbuckle a little more. Don't care about that. They changed PA's armor corruption to be stifling dagger damage, which means her dagger will do more damage when she gets the talent, but no armor corruption. But since the Deso buff, it should be fine. PA's gonna be just fine. No real change. Phoenix is tankier, has more agility, but doesn't slow as much. But can use Fire Spirits much more often, which is super cool. Very big change. Love it. Puck's early phase shift is better. And Shard causes phase shift to attack all enemies within a range plus 200 radius of Puck, which is nice. And they just changed that talent over there. They reduced the cooldown on Silence, and Scepter now makes Waning Rift to have extra radius and knock back enemies, which means they'll probably trigger ult. And reveals invisible units and wards. Pudge got an armor nerf, but an int gain. No longer has magic resistance on Flesh Heap, and it has less strength gain from Flesh Heap, but it has an active, which gives him a damage block against all damage types, including pure, of this listed value. And it's a low cooldown. So he can just like be like, I'm going to take less damage now. So I'm not sure how that will work out. We'll have to see. And they nerfed Dismember Shard. We're almost done. Pugna can now cast Decrep while channeling, which is bullshit. Nether Ward no longer heals when someone casts a spell. That's awesome. I hated it when it did. But it does reduce enemy spell damage, so you can't really cast spells around Pugna and be effective. And now, if he has Shard and he has a Nether Ward out, he can channel his Life Drain into the Nether Ward, and it will refract into all enemy heroes within range for reduced damage. It's pretty bullshit. I'm going to see how that's going to work. I expect a Pugna to just end the game. Nerfs to Quap across the board, nerfs to Quap across the board. Razor can't double link, which was bullshit anyway. Ricky got buffs across the board, basically. Better strength gain. Mana cost better on Smokescreen early. Blink now slows. Blink Strike now slows by a small amount. Sorry. Whatever, don't care about that. Sleeping Dart's dispellable. It already should have been. It's fair. And now at 25, he gets Tricks of the Trade, applies a basic Dispel, can also be cast when rooted or leashed. Big buff. That's beautiful. Lift lasts less time. Sorry, more time, I lied. Lift lasts more time. Cooldown on Spell Steal went down substantially. And now, Aghanim Scepter lets you take 2 spells. Not from the same target or from the same target. Literally anybody. You take 1 spell, and then when you're ready to cast another, you just take another spell depending on what someone's casted. So you can take like Earthshaker ult, followed by, I don't know, like a Lion ult or something. You have both simultaneously. You can't take Tinker's Rearm though. Otherwise that'd be too strong because you just keep it pocketed and just not change your spells. Because you'd get like Enigma ult and Tinker ult or something if there's Enigma in the game, and then just you could just permanently like Enigma ult or something. That's bullshit. It's really strong. It's so strong. And you get sub abilities from spells if they have 2. Sand King is tankier. They fixed Sandstorm to be better. Shadow Demon has a new ability with Aghanim Shard. It repeatedly applies a basis Dispel on the target, removing negative buffs for the duration. At the end of the duration, the unit's healed. Units under the effect of disruption can still be affected by this. Cool. Minor buff to Necromastery Shard. And Requiem Souls now gives a magic resistance nerf, so he can hit you with Raise. Shackles now does less damage, but heals Shadow Shaman over its duration. I mean, whatever. Shard now makes Glaives get more int stolen. Stupid. Skywrath does more damage in general, all across the board, more or less. The only thing that changed is less magic resistance reduction on Ancient Seal, but everything else does more damage. Slaughter runs less in water, but now when he has Corrosive Haze, the targets leave water trails, so he can chase you better if you have ult on you. Slark is squishier, but he deals damage on pounce now. It's easier to hit it, and some nice talent changes. Snapfire does more damage at early levels of Scatter Blast, and they just fix some like quality of life things with it, basically, more or less. They just fix like the shard interactions. Less armor reduction on Shredder, which is huge nerf. Sniper, don't care about any of that. Spectre, it's easier to proc Desolate, and it does more damage early, but then some nerfs to some talents. Spirit Breaker, he got a nerf to the percentage of move speed and status resistance on Bulldoze, and a talent for charge, and does less damage from bash, so big nerfs. Storm got some stat gains in general, just a bunch of stat gains, but one of his talents was nerfed, so that's really sad. I don't know why. So there's more agility. Stormhammer, Scepter now dispels the target. Shard now makes Warcry undispellable and grant 5 armor to all allies. Small stuff. Techies completely work. So basically, no more stasis, no more remote mines at all. He's faster. Sorry, he's slower. But he does more damage substantially. Less armor. And attacks a little faster. So nice sticky bomb. He throws a bomb at you. It'll stick to you and then slow you and do damage. He has a taser. He buffs himself, and if you hit him, it makes him faster. And if you hit him, you get disarmed. And at the end of the duration, even if you didn't hit him, in an area, he'll disarm people. There's also a Scepter where he can cast it on allies so that they get the same thing. Proximity Mines now is ult. It is just, in general, there'll be more of them. They can be a little closer. They blow up faster. And they will blow up more. Like, they have a bigger radius, too. And they're just better in general. There's more. They actually have less damage, funny enough. No, sorry, they have more. I misread this. Slightly more damage. But if you're on the edge, you take less. So if you just barely step on the edge, you won't get hit as hard. So I guess that's fair. That's why they do more. Blast Off is better later. The self-damage was reduced. It's no longer lethal, so he cannot deny at all. And the damage was reduced too. I don't care about side blades. They just changed something minor. Terrorblade lost a bunch of agility, but gained attack speed. I don't really care. They buffed late meta. That's really cool. I like that a lot, actually. Kraken blocks more. Anchor Smash Shard does less. So he's more of a tank, less of a damage dealer. Whirling Death damage went up notably, but the attribute reduction went down. And the cooldown was increased too, which is sad, like at earlier levels. Flamethrower was nerfed in general. Tinker is weaker. Status resistance is less. Channeling time got nerfed late, 1.25 to 1.5. Damage reduced on laser. He does have a bullshit ability now, Warp Flare. He throws, with a shard, he throws a grenade. It does a little bit of damage and teleports a unit away from Tinker and reduces their cast and attack range, so it's harder for them to get back at him before he teleports out. So this will make it easy for him to teleport out, but all these things are huge nerfs. We'll see how they go. Tiny stuns better with Avalanche. They made Toss better with Grow. More or less that's what it is. Yeah, he does a lot of like weird things with Tree Grab and stuff. I don't know. Living Armor is just up more often. It doesn't really change the heal much, though. The lower level heal sucks, but it does more armor, so it's just better. Living Armor is just better. Battle Trance gives phase movement, so his ult's actually good now. Go Troll. Tusk is slower, but the damage of a lot of his abilities went up, and Walrus Punch is up more often, by 2 seconds at max level. The only downside is the damage earlier is worse, but it's the same late. A lot of cool changes. Underlord now has the Fiend's Gate, which is the thing he had before with 2 portals. It's a little change, though. It gives some bonuses to your allies when they go through it, but enemies can go through it too, but they don't have the benefits, and they actually... with a Scepter, there'll be a Pit of Malice waiting on the other end for them. So, it's very interesting. So he comes to the portal now, so you can't screw up your entire team. You can't make them go back or something. They have a choice. Soul Rip's just better. It takes less units to get the maximum, and the maximum is actually still higher, which I love. Ursa, I don't care about that. Shard makes Magic Missile bounce on heroes. Venomancer just does more damage. And the damage is increased on Poison Sting. Ult has more damage and it is faster, so it's harder to disjoint, like to dodge at the last second. The familiars are stronger, aren't they always? Astral Step goes farther, but Assimilate does less shard bonus damage. Don't care. It's easier to destroy early Swarm. Shikuchi cooldown is worse early. Gale Force from the Shard now has a cooldown decrease, but has a range. Focus Fire is so weird now. Basically, it's always the same damage reduction, but the attack speed's so much lower earlier, but it's better at the end. So early Windmage is worse, probably. It's very weird. I don't know. And a bonus to the Windrun Scepter. Easier to cast Winter's Cursed, which is awesome. Death Ward's better, I guess. Whatever. Wraith King lost some agility for attack speed. Lifesteal was reduced. It's all minor stuff. And Zeus. Basically, they put Static Field to his Shard, moved Heavenly Jump into his kit. So they made Arc Lightning better. Heavenly Jump has pretty high range for hitting people. It slows them, slows their attack speed, and increases their cast time, making them cast slower for a couple seconds. Zeus gets a bunch of vision when he does it too. Can't be cast while leashed though. Cost is low, cooldown's low. So seems pretty cool. And that's the patch. We're going to play in about an hour probably. Appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you all next time.